right, guys, welcome back to PSM Sunday Nights. We're going to be starting a new series this week, and we're going to be talking about the book of Hosea. And this study is going to look a little bit different than our past Sunday evenings. This one's going to be a little bit more discussion-based for the next few weeks. So what I mean by that is I'm going to give you guys some information. We're going to talk a little bit about the book of Hosea, what it says in the Bible, and then you guys are going to pause this video and then talk a little bit more in your guys' small groups and kind of discuss what I may have talked about. It'll be a little bit of back and forth, and it's kind of a trial and error type situation for us, and so we hope you guys enjoy it. I've really enjoyed reading through Hosea today and reading through Hosea this week and kind of talking to you guys a little bit more, and I'm very excited to begin this study. But the story of Hosea kind of starts as a love story. So after I get done here, I'm going to have you guys pause, but I want you guys to go and watch Taylor Swift's music video for her song Love Story. And why I'm going to have you guys do this is kind of to get your guys' brains rolling and kind of looking and thinking about what a love story actually is. What's an ideal love story? What's your neighbor's ideal love story? What's the love story between Hosea and his wife Gomer? So why don't you guys go ahead and pause this and then talk about that music video guys in your guys' small groups. Awesome. We're back. I hope you guys enjoyed Taylor Swift's music video for Love Story. It's one of my favorite songs by Taylor Swift. But let's dive a little bit more into Hosea. So I'm going to give you guys some background information on what the book of Hosea is, who is Hosea, our main character as well. So Hosea can kind of be a challenging book for some modern readers. I'll be honest, I've never read the book of Hosea, so when Mike proposed this idea, I was very excited as I get to read a new book of the Bible that I've not read before. But Hosea was written about 2,700 years ago, and it was written during a time where the kingdom was divided. It's a mix of different ancient poetry and also some narrative too, which means that there is a story in this book. Hosea's ministry was primarily focused on the northern kingdom of Israel and its capital of Samaria. Hosea was a young man, probably around the age of 17 to 19, when the book begins. And the story opens with him marrying Gomer, and when the average marrying age was around 17 to 19, or the late teen years for a man. One of the sins God's people were committing during this time was a mixing of religions, which means they claimed to follow God, but they also worshipped false gods. And they were even combining different aspects of different religions and kind of picking and choosing what they liked and didn't like about all the different religions. So let's dive a little bit into Hosea. Hosea 1 verse 2 says, "When the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, he said to him, 'Go and marry a prostitute so that some of her children will be conceived in prostitution.' This will illustrate how Israel has acted like a prostitute by turning against the Lord and worshiping other gods." So that word prostitute might seem a little bit alarming to some of you guys. I'll be honest, it seemed a little alarming to me too. But this word prostitute here can also be translated to promiscuous women. Either way, Hosea was to marry a woman whose faithfulness to him would be in question, making the question of who could be the father of their children one day. I'm going to have you guys pause this video now and kind of go talk a little bit more about what Hosea was feeling when marrying Gomer and what his call was when the Lord came and called upon him. Awesome. So I'm glad you guys got that chance to talk a little bit more about who Gomer is and who Hosea is as we dive a little bit further into Hosea. But now we're going to talk a little bit about their children, as it was one of the first things that it was discussed in verse 2. I'm going to go ahead and read to you guys Hosea chapter 1, verses 3 through 9. "So Hosea married Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, and she became pregnant and gave Hosea a son. And the Lord said, 'Name the child Jezreel.'" Jezreel means God plants. For I am about to punish King Jehu's dynasty to average the murders he committed at Jezreel. In fact, I will bring an end to Israel's independence. I will break its military power in the Jezreel Valley." Soon Gomer became pregnant again and gave birth to a daughter. And the Lord said to Hosea, "Name your daughter Lo-ruhamah," which means not loved. "For I will no longer show love to the people of Israel or forgive them." But I will show love to the people of Judah. I will free them from their enemies, not with weapons or armies or horses or chariots, but by my power as the Lord their God." And Gomer had weaned Lo-ruhamah, and again she became pregnant and gave birth to a second son. And the Lord said, "Name him Lo-ammi, or not my people. For Israel is not my people, and I am not their God." So within these next 6 verses or so, we find out a lot of information about Hosea and Gomer's family and their children's names. I'm going to have you guys pause this video again and take some time to discuss in your guys' small groups a little bit more about what those names mean and why the Lord told Hosea and Gomer to name their children those specific names. Alrighty, so now you guys talked a little bit more about Hosea and Gomer's family and what their children's names mean and what they're supposed to do now. Now let's look a little bit more into the hope that this story also has, because it seems like all we've seen is not so good things. But there is still hope in this story. Hosea verses 1:10-11 says, "Yet the time will come when Israel's people will be like the sands of the seashore, too many to count. Then at the place where they were told, 'You are not my people,' it will be said, 'You are the children of the living God.' Then the people of Judah and Israel will unite together. They will choose one leader for themselves, and they will return from exile together. What a day that will be, the day of Jezreel, when God will again plant his people in his land." So there we have it. We have the hope that the Lord is going to bring. Throughout the whole book of Hosea and some other prophets in the book of the Bible in general, it's kind of the same type of story, where the prophet will bring light to the failure and sin of the people, resulting in God's judgment, but then it's followed by hope from the Lord. Despite Israel's consistent pattern of being unfaithful to God, God's faithfulness remains true to his covenant and how that remains consistent. From the first chapter to the last in the book of Hosea, we see this consistency of God's faithfulness. I'm going to have you guys pause a little bit more again and kind of talk about this faithfulness and this hope that we have in these last few verses that I just read to you guys. Awesome. So now we're going to kind of dive into Hosea chapter 2. And this is kind of where that poetry comes in that I told you guys about at the beginning of this video. This is going to kind of describe a little bit more about Israel's betrayal to God. But the book ends with God winning back his love and transforming her into something beautiful again. And then Hosea chapter 3 resumes the narrative of Hosea and what he is seeing and how he's following God. So Hosea chapter 2, verses 2-5, 14, 19-20, and 22-23 is what I'm going to read to you guys here. You guys can kind of go back if you guys want to read that in the Bible too a little bit, or it'll be on the bottom of the screen. But here it is. "But now bring charges against Israel, your mother, for she is no longer my wife, and I am no longer her husband. Tell her to remove the prostitute's makeup from her face and clothing. Otherwise, I will strip her as she was the day she was born. I will leave her to die of thirst as in a dry barren of wilderness. I will not love her children, for they were conceived in prostitution. Their mother is a shameless prostitute and became pregnant in a shameful way. But then I will win her back once again. I will lead her into the desert and speak tenderly to her there. I will make you my wife forever, showing you righteousness and justice, unfailing love and compassion. I will be faithful to you and make you wiser." God plants. "At that time, I will plant a crop of Israelites and raise them for myself. I will show love to those people I called not loved, and to those who are not my people, I will say, 'Now you are my people.' And they will reply, 'You are our God.'" So that's kind of what chapter 2 in Hosea is kind of talking about. But let's dive into chapter 3, like I said, from Hosea's perspective. Hosea chapter 3, verses 1 and then 4 through 5 says, "Then the Lord said to me, 'Go and love your wife again, even though she commits adultery with another. This will illustrate that the Lord still loves Israel, even though the people have turned to other gods and to worship them.' This shows that Israel will go on a long time without a king or prince, and without sacrifices, sacred pillars, priests, or even idols. But afterward, the people will return and devote themselves to the Lord, their God, and to David's descent, their king. In the last days, they will tremble in awe of the Lord and his goodness." So I don't know about you guys, but sometimes there's some other idols in my life that kind of get in the way from me following God and remaining faithful to him. But I love this story because even if I would fall short, like the kingdom of Israel did, I know that God is still faithful and he still remains true in my life. I'm going to have you guys pause again and talk a little bit more in your guys' small groups about Hosea's chapters 2 and 3 and kind of what it says for our lives and how we can place that into our lives and our perspective. Alrighty, guys, to kind of wrap up our lesson here tonight, we're going to kind of end on talking a little bit more about Hosea and Gomer's relationship. So this story is a little bit of a shocking one. It's not one that you normally hear about in the Bible, which is probably why I've never really read the book of Hosea before. But I love that the idea that would require Hosea to be a living example of Israel's unfaithfulness and the pain it caused, it's a hard one to process. But I want you guys to use it as an opportunity to go deeper and to really think about how this story of Hosea and Gomer can reflect on your guys' life. I'm going to have you guys end with some more discussion and some deeper thought. But if you have any other questions about the story of Hosea and Gomer, I'd love to talk to you guys sometime. Or talk to your guys' small group leader about this love story between Hosea and Gomer. See you guys next week.